Hi, welcome to my talk at AI Week 2025, Using AI to Preserve Cultural Heritage. In this session, we'll frame cultural heritage as the tangible and intangible things that we inherit from the past, value in the present, and pass on to the future generations, such as historic sites, buildings and artifacts, crafts and storytelling, living traditions, languages, and customs. So, an overview of the session. So, AI has the potential to offer powerful tools to safeguard cultural heritage and foster understanding across communities. This talk explores responsible approaches to digitisation, translation, and immersive storytelling, ensuring technology amplifies cultural voices rather than replaces them. It has three main sections which address the need for inclusive and ethical datasets, designing AI to promote inclusivity and empathy, and how AI can connect people through storytelling. The sections draw upon real-world practice, and they each show us how to approach AI in a purposeful way, in a small-scale way, and in a thoughtful way. Throughout, my colleague Marissa will use the chat function to share resources that may interest you. First, a bit about Calvium, which is a leading digital innovation agency that cares about creating digital placemaking experiences to foster deeper connections between people and places. And we're also members of the AI Experts platform launched this year by Digital Leaders. And for over 20 years, members of the team have been developing digital technologies to tell stories of the past and to engage people with arts and cultural heritage in novel ways. For example, the Beckford's Tower app uses augmented reality to guide visitors around the 120-foot landmark and its complex stories. The History City app series combines augmented reality, digital placemaking, and multi-language support to bring the hidden histories of many European cities to life. Fictional characters guide users through immersive storylines that reveal forgotten pasts and deepen connections to place. Hidden Florence 3D uses AR and GPS to place users inside a virtual reconstruction of the long-lost church of San Pier Maggiore. And the app rebuilds the church in its original Florentine setting and around its physical multi-paneled altarpiece, which is now housed in the National Gallery. And finally, the Lost Palace uses bespoke handheld devices, 3D sound, and haptic technology to let visitors hear, touch, and feel the past as they explore Whitehall, experiencing history exactly where it happened. And you can find out about these projects and dozens more on our website, calvium.com. So as you can see from this slide, digital technologies have rapidly become central to how we understand, how we operate in, and how we experience the world. Artificial intelligence is an umbrella term for various interconnected technologies that are implemented to attain different goals. And as this timeline shows, AI didn't start in 2022 when ChatGPT was released into the wild by OpenAI. In fact, the term artificial intelligence was coined by an academic in the US, John McCarthy, for a summer school that he was running in 1956. And AI has since evolved into a major field of science and engineering. And today, AI is everywhere in digital assistants like Siri and Alexa, software in your sat-nav, portrait mode on your smartphone, product recommendations from online stores, film recommendations from Netflix. They all involve various AI technologies. And indeed, predictive AI is embedded in critical areas such as the job market, financial markets, and the transport system. But what's really shaken the world and brought AI out into the public kind of discourse is generative AI. Prior to the release of ChatGPT, most awareness and practical use cases within AI were predictive in nature. So as we entrust AI to preserve cultural heritage with care, we face important ethical questions, such as who decides what is preserved and what is left behind? Who provides this data, and has there been consent? Who owns this data? What does provenance mean in relation to large language models? And has there been plagiarism or cultural misappropriation? What does accountability or explicability mean for the few powerful actors behind generative AI? And so much more. As AI collects and categorizes, it also wields the power to shape cultural narratives, to decide which stories are told and which voices are amplified. Having set the AI scene, let's now visit the first of our three sections, drawing upon real-world practice and showing us how to approach AI in a purposeful, small-scale, and thoughtful way. The need for inclusive and ethical datasets. Technology is never neutral. It's shaped by those who create it and who distribute it. Every algorithm, piece of code, and digital tool holds the creator's choices, their bias, and their values. Sometimes the choices are deliberate, other times they reflect unconscious bias, rather than the needs of the communities they should serve. Either way, technology reflects its wider social, cultural, economic, and political contexts. As such, it can reinforce existing inequalities, or, if guided by thoughtful and inclusive values, become a catalyst for positive change. Why do we need inclusive data sets? Well, if we focus on the area of language, datasets that exclude minority languages are considered biased because they fail to represent the full diversity of human communication. AI systems trained on these incomplete datasets, such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, perform well in dominant languages like English or Spanish, but struggle or fail entirely with minority ones like Ulster Scots, Cornish, and Manx. The result is the privileging of already powerful groups while further marginalizing communities whose languages are underrepresented. For example, most speech recognition tools work well in dominant languages, but often fail with minority language or even regional accents. When speakers can't use these tools in their own language, it limits access. Over time, this deepens inequality and has the potential to accelerate language loss. Inclusive datasets, however, ensure every voice is heard, every culture reflected, and no community left behind. Bringing global representation that reflects diverse cultural and ethnic backgrounds in this age of AI. According to UNESCO, around 40% of the estimated 6,700 languages spoken around the world are indeed in danger of disappearing. That's around 2,680 languages, most of these being indigenous language. Therefore, putting the cultures, knowledge systems, and worldviews to which they belong at risk of vanishing. Recognizing this threat of erasure, the United Nations General Assembly declared 2022 to 2032 the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. Kip Bobroff, who I shall turn to later, sums things up well. The death of cultural values, indigenous values, of language is a loss to humanity. At this point, we'll turn to practice. Our highlight project comes from the Maori community in New Zealand. It is massively inspiring and illustrates perfectly how to create inclusive datasets to preserve cultural heritage. Te Hiku Media is a charitable media organisation spanning radio, online TV, and media services. They have been committed to revitalising the Maori language through their tribal radio station since the 1990s. As such, they have amassed a large audio repository of people speaking Te Reo Maori, the language of the Maori people. So Te Hiku Media set about developing a bespoke AI Te Reo speech recognition model so that the whole audio archive could be transcribed with only a few speakers taking part. Importantly, this project was undertaken with a culture of care, accountability, and respect. The Maori community and their elders gave permission, and the Maori people retained sovereignty over their data. As well as creating their own automatic speech recognition model that achieves 92% accuracy, they also created a data licensing agreement and their own small data center with 8 NVIDIA GPUs. Te Hiku Media is also hoping that this project sets a model for other Indigenous communities to create language tools that reflect their unique languages and cultures, contributing to digital sovereignty and revitalizing more Indigenous languages. I'm soon going to hand over to Suzanne Duncan of Te Hiku Media, who has kindly allowed me to share a video of her explaining benchmarking, which is a key aspect of creating inclusive datasets. I also highly recommend her paper, which is on this slide, Fit for Purpose, Fit for Our Purpose, not yours, benchmarking for a low-resource Indigenous language, where she describes the rigorous and inclusive benchmarking process that was undertaken. In the paper, Suzanne says that benchmarking is used in natural language processing and machine learning as an objective lens to measure or track the progress and accuracy of a model. So, as a model is being created, benchmarking is the metric that is being used to analyze the accuracy of the outputs. And for extra clarity, before we get to Suzanne, in this context, a model is essentially a computer program that has been trained on large amounts of data to identify patterns and make predictions. For example, in the language tasks where we are focused, a model learns how words and sentences are structured so that it can generate text, translate between the languages, or answer questions. The better the training data and the design of the model, the more accurate and useful its outputs are.
Tēnā koutou e te iwi. Today we're discussing natural language processing, automatic speech recognition and benchmarking. How is benchmarking eroding Indigenous languages like Te Reo Māori? Tēnā koe, Suzanne.
Tēnā koe, Peter Lucas.
Your paper is called Fit for Our Purpose, not yours. Describe to me the problem that your paper speaks to.
Our paper is speaking to the fact that largely the benchmarks that exist out there for natural language processing have been developed and created for all languages, and within that the Māori language benchmark is not fit for our purpose. It's important for us to be able to have benchmarks that reflect us, who we are, where we've been. We're Indigenous peoples that have gone through colonisation, urbanisation, a revitalisation movement, and this benchmark does not capture any of us, our story, and who we are.
How would you describe what's wrong with the current benchmarking system, and why do you think it should improve?
The benchmarking system that we've really explored in quite depth is the Flores and the FLIRS dataset. So in that benchmarking dataset, there's no words like marae, there's no words like tangihanga. The words that are there relate to Wikipedia, news articles, and not us as a people. So there's a aside from the fact it does not reflect us culturally or historically, there's a load of grammatical mistakes. There's a lot of what a lot of people would talk about in terms of a whakaaro Pākehā, so based on English grammar structures and the way that they see the world, not the way that we see the world. So that benchmark does not reflect who we are, and therefore, how can it truly express tools that are going to work for us?
Tell us about the benchmark that Te Hiku Media have developed.
Yeah, we're really proud of the benchmark that we've developed, and we've done it because it became very clear early on we needed to find a way to measure how well our tools were doing. And so what we did is we started with who is the group of speakers within our community, one that we are aspiring to, that we would set as the gold standard of our language, and starting from there. So we started with native speakers that we held within our collection.
Rawatu I kuni I te kauni. No te heringa ke e tahi o mātou o muri no mai. Ia wa kau mātura ka haere, ka urukinga mini tatang, ka hoki mai ki te kāinga, ka tahi ka kōrero o I tēnei kupu, te kaua, ne?
So we started there, and then from there we've added more sub-benchmarks within that to represent our language-speaking community, people whose language comes from kura kaupapa, people who have fought hard to learn the language as a second language learner, as an adult, and so we've got a sub-benchmark within that captures that group of people, because we need our tools to work for our whole community. We hope that this benchmark will continue to grow, so we want to be able to add new groups, new sounds, new dialects, perhaps new regional variations, so that our benchmark covers our whole Māori language.
How important is it for Indigenous people that are representative of those Indigenous languages to be leading decisions about benchmarking?
Absolutely. The purpose of this paper is about encouraging other Indigenous communities to take leadership and create their own benchmarks. I feel like the benchmarking space is dominated by these large multilingual datasets. It's about creating language tools for all, so language technologists can feel great about themselves, but the reality is for our communities, they don't represent us. So we want to be able to show that you can create your own benchmarks and that you can shape it so that it suits your needs today and tomorrow.
Where to next?
For us, it's about continuing to develop our benchmark, to grow it further, to ensure we're capturing our entire community. It's also important to us to support other communities to do this as well. So we want to provide the blueprint on how to do it and support other communities to do it, and to ensure that our benchmark is relevant. If we take leadership in the space, Indigenous communities own their language revitalisation and the tools they create, we can ensure that the quality is excellent and we can ensure that the outcome is great. We're invested. It's our language, and we're not prepared to compromise anymore.
Tēnā koe, Suzanne.
Kia ora, Peter Lucas.
O te rai e tātou mā koia e nā.
Thank you, Suzanne. Throughout developing these tools, the language community has asked for applications such as captioning and transcription of audio archives. Ensuring the benchmark reflects natural language supports decision-making towards developing tools relevant to the community. And Te Hiku Media shows us how to imagine and follow a path where we use and create AI technologies in purposeful ways, where we create small, specialized models that are great at doing specific things. And staying with that approach, now we move to our second section in my talk about AI for cultural preservation, and we meet Kip Bobroff and Cara Bobroff. So this is section 2, designing AI to enable inclusivity and empathy. So staying, as I said, with Indigenous communities, as we've seen, inclusivity or inclusion means building artificial intelligence technologies that empower Indigenous peoples, safeguard their knowledge, and strengthen their ability to thrive in a digital world on their own terms. About a year ago, I was privileged to be invited by the Rhodes Foundation to be a speaker at their annual Forum on Technology and Society. Part of the program had an AI challenge, and one of those pitching a project was Kip Bobroff, who had been a Rhodes Scholar for the past 30 years. He's been working serving Indigenous communities in the American Southwest and protecting Native sovereignty and culture. Kip was representing the team who were pitching Indigenous AI in Oxford, and his words set up the project. If tribes can't control their own AI, AI will undermine tribal systems. The pitch started with Kara Bobroff calling in from New Mexico. She highlighted that the true importance of Indigenous AI lies in putting communities in control. Rather than simply adopting external technologies, AI should be seen as a vehicle for tribes to shape solutions and innovations on their own terms, rooted in their own knowledge, laws, natural way of being, and priorities. She stressed that Indigenous AI must be community-driven, created by and for Indigenous peoples. This approach could support many goals, and she said, from revitalizing and preserving Indigenous languages to improving well-being in ways that are specific to each nation or tribe. Ultimately, their message was clear. Indigenous voices must lead the development and application of AI if it's to be used within their context. Almost all tribal civil servants rely on often manual bureaucratic processes due to federal and Western influenced tribal requirements. The Indigenous AI project would create an app to streamline paperwork and automate routine compliance tasks, thus alleviating the administrative burden. In that way, time would be freed up to spend time in the community, sharing values, teaching culture, and strengthening relationships. Kip emphasized that while Indigenous communities may not have the financial resources or large markets of major tech players, the loss of Indigenous languages and cultural values represents a loss to humanity as a whole. He underlined the urgent need for greater investment and focus on Indigenous AI in the United States, and noted the potential for collaboration with Indigenous communities on similar issues globally has barely been explored. Kip stressed that the level of insight of the Indigenous AI team meant that they could make sure that the data and the app are tribally owned, tribally controlled, and tribally specific, keeping data and the app firmly in the hands of the community. He went on to say that AI is not a distant future. As we know, it's already here, even in tribal courts. The risk is clear. Unless AI is tribally specific and tribally owned, it becomes the next wave of neo-colonialism, overwhelming tribal values, laws, and systems. The challenge then is to take these tools and train them on their own tribal systems so that AI strengthens rather than undermines communities. Done right, it can free people within those systems, empowering those with cultural knowledge and relationships, even if they lack formal training or writing skills, but who have the relationships and the cultural understanding to do the work. And finally, for section 3, for how AI can connect people through storytelling, we are heading to Detroit in the US. i.Detroit is a research-based project by the artist Marcus Lyons. Developed over 3 years and grounded in a 6-month community-led nomination process, the project celebrates 100 citizens making significant contributions to the city and beyond. Through photographic portraits, app-based oral histories, and ancestral DNA mapping, the project offers a deeper understanding of Detroit's identity. It invites reflection on our shared roles within communities and is presented as a book, a museum exhibition, and a digital experience. The Calvium team has created an audio experience that seamlessly integrates with the visual elements of the book and the exhibition. For instance, when a user scans a portrait with their phone, the voice of the subject will play and their story in their own words can be heard. Similarly, scanning the front or back cover of the book will trigger music tracks. So as mentioned, when the user places their smartphone in front of any single portrait, the app needs to play a person's specific voice. To do so, the app has to recognize the image immediately and then play the associated audio track. We used machine learning to train the app to recognize each of the 100 portraits, and this section provides an overview of our approach. I've asked Fernando, my colleague who built the machine learning model, to explain what he did.
So the key point here is to get a photo and determine what portrait, which of the 100 portraits we are dealing with. And to achieve this, we need to first create a machine learning model. And this model was created by training it with hundreds or thousands of images, which is different versions of each of the 100 portraits. And once we have generated the machine learning model, we just include it in the app. And whenever the user is scanning a photo, the scanned image is passed through the machine learning model, and we can get which of the different portraits we are dealing with, so we can show text and related soundtrack.
I then asked Fernando about any challenges he faced.
Faced a few challenges. The first one was that we didn't have physical copies of the portraits. We just have the electronic files. And at first we tried feeding the model with the different versions of the JPEGs, but it turned out not to work very well because people will be using the app, will be pointing their phone cameras to the portraits, and the image we get from that is, maybe it might look the same, but it's different from the electronic file because there are reflections, different lightings, or the image might be blurry. So we asked the client to send physical copies, and we spent hours with our phone cameras scanning all the portraits until we'll have a good collection of images to train the model. That was the main improvement. The results after that improved a lot. And yeah, the second challenge is that when people are using this app, they may frame the subject they frame with the cameras might not only be the portrait, but there might be some background, or they are not framing the whole image in their phone screens. So what we did to face this was using face detection with Siege, which is another application of machine learning, and it's very developed. So we could use face detection to know exactly where in the image the person is. Then we crop out the face and part of the body, and we use these images, these cropped images, to train the model. And then when the user is scanning something, we apply face detection there too. So we make the same cropping so we can match the cropped image with our model, which is trained with cropped images too. And by doing this, we leave out the background or any surroundings of the picture, and the precision of the of the machine learning process improves them.
And was Fernando happy with the results?
I am very happy with the results. After all this time tweaking the model, trying to improve it, we ended up getting an accuracy of over 99%.
Wow.
So yeah, that was very rewarding.
There you go. Thank you, Fernando. So this painstaking attention to detail ensures a seamless, immersive experience for audiences. And indeed, that runs across all of our projects at Calvium. Right, a wrap up. We've been to New Zealand, the US, and the UK to learn how AI is being approached purposefully, thoughtfully, and at a small scale to preserve cultural heritage. Across each project, the need has been understood at the outset. Consideration has been taken to involve AI in a measured and responsible way. And the outputs or proposed outputs are all explainable, accountable, transparent. These days, we are used to being overwhelmed by generative AI. What I hope you have found today are different ways of engaging with artificial intelligence that inspire and encourage you to adopt approaches that are purposeful, thoughtful, and small scale. As part of the Digital Leaders AI Experts platform, Calvium would be more than happy to chat with you about your own future AI projects. So give us a call. Thank you.